Hi, I'm Marion Real and I'm doing systemic design research. My background is at the intersection between cognitive engineering, eco-design and sociology of innovation. I became passionate about systemic thinking when I was starting various interventions in the Basque Country as an action researcher some years ago. Since then, I'm exploring circular system transition at relatively small scale from neighborhood to region. And I'm involved in the Fab Lab and Fab City network since 2018. I'm now working at Fab Lab Barcelona, sharing the value and the practice of the team, with supporting the design and coordination of some multi-stakeholder projects and also with specific design research and intervention. To mention some projects, I was particularly active in projects related to textile transition. You can think about She Makes and their Little Wool Factory, Cisco, then the case of Remix El Barrio, and the project Reservist with the Resilient Maker stories. What we will see today, first we will try to answer different questions, and the main question we want to answer is what do the distributed design community and members want to express when they are stating sustainable as their core value, and how we as collective network or as individual designer, we can try to strengthen our capability to tend toward most sustainability, but also avoiding the risk for greenwashing and light communication on sustainability. So what I will bring in the discussion is to propose you 9 ways to unfold and navigate through mental models of sustainability and try to unlock cognitive fixation, thinking about how we can create rupture in the way we are actually thinking. So the session will be organized in 3 moments. The first is about talking a bit about what is sustainability and what the origin, the context. Then we will dive in the 9 ways to support mind shifting. Then we will zoom into a case study on the textile sector. So let's start by talking a bit and think about how we feel about sustainability. When you think about sustainability, are you thinking about something steady, balanced, something that is flourishing, something more regenerative, something secure or viable? What's your current feeling towards sustainability? You see it as an ideal to reach, maybe something that will never exist, an opportunity to innovate, a bottomless pit, a reason to do better, a line for communicating your project, or an argument to deep dive into complexity. So one thing is sure is that sustainability has been overused over the years, and sustainability is also one of the most ubiquitous, contested, indispensable concepts of our time. I would like to go back a bit on the part of the history of what we call global sustainability. Not to go too far on the story, but to start with what we call sustainable development and what the United Nations has been doing for some years now. It's important to start back on the work that has been doing from the United Nations, and especially the sustainable development concept has been developed in the Commission of Brundtland. There was this definition of sustainability as it is about meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So to think about sustainable development and of the quantity of flow of goods and services that can satisfy human needs, we have identified different types of category capitals that are really important. And you can see this diagram that are super familiar. And it's important to see that sustainable development is about society, nature, and economy. What is important also is that there is different way to see this dimension. And initially we see it at the same level. But now there is this first shift I wanted to introduce in this course is really to think about sustainability with these dimensions that are nested one with each other. So we are talking about nature, society, economy, but society is integrated into nature and economy into society. And so after this first work that has been done with this year from the Commission Brundtland, there was this famous Sustainable Development Goals that emerged and that were spread among different countries, different organizations, and I'm sure you already saw this colorful principle with this 17 goal of sustainable development. What is interesting is that they keep this nested model, and they also have diversified a bit all what we call sustainability to try to make some working group on different topics, such as there is one called No Poverty, Zero Hunger. You can see also Life on Land, and this was done to share a blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet now in the future. Then from them there is also another work that is really interesting to share, and it's about what we're done with Kate Raroff with the donut of social and planetary boundary. What is nice in this diagram is that there is more detail at some point on what we think when we think about environment, when we think about social part, what do we want to, what are we talking about? Kate Raroff, in this diagram, what they developed is to define 9 planetary boundary. When we say planetary boundary, is of course dimension that could, if we go too far in the way we consume and produce, there will be a real risk for the survival of the planet. And that dimension, it's some dimension that we know the boundaries about biodiversity loss, about land conversion, about chemical pollution, for instance. Apart from the planetary boundary, there is social foundation, and she used 12 different categories to think about what is that the society, what are the foundation of our society. We can think about health, food, education, social equity, network, energy, water. So to create new scenario, new narrative, new project, and new society model, we need really to find a balance between the social foundation and the ecological ceiling, the planetary boundary. So what is nice also in the sentence that you saw on the screen is that between social and planetary boundary lie an environmentally safe and socially just space in which humanity can thrive. This is where we as community and designer practitioner, we need to understand where we act, where we impact, so also to get better reflection on how we can improve sustainable practice. So the last model I wanted to share with you, and the last references about big sustainability, is this sustainable build model, which was developed by Tobias Luce and his colleague. The importance here is to see how sustainability is influenced by culture and people, and also to state the importance of the local, not only the global sustainability. And the global sustainability can be done only by local action, local intervention. And it's important to see that the cultural value will influence a lot the way the social, economic, and environmental impact will interact together. If you look at the distributed design website, it is stated the value sustainable as the following paragraph. We promote sustainable production and consumption with a focus on product distribution and fabrication, the application of 0 kilometer in supply chains, open source distribution, and the circular life cycle of products. What we retain mainly is about design for circularity. It's about some projects that are situated and socially aware. And there is the concept of regenerative that is also mentioned in some as a moment in the community. So when you look back on the literature and the scientific article and the different domain linking distributed design and sustainable circular design, there is many possible, a lot of literature and a lot of different domain. I think when we stick to product design or product and service design, the most important parts to begin with and to really have as a common practice is eco-design. Eco-design has been developed for more than 20 years, so there is a lot of practice, tools, method. We have learned a lot already from what has been done. But after, there is also interesting concept to dig in, and we have a lot of other speaker or other member in the community that talk about those topics. We can think about how distributed design and manufacturing are related to sustainability, how is the concept of proximity and cosmolocalism, what about circular design, circular policy, transition design, low convivial tech, all domains that are really close to what we do in the community. And you can see in this slide some references, and I invite you to look at them. So something I wanted to make it clear is that honestly, there are few chances for your product and creation to be fully sustainable. So maybe one advice is to don't claim too easily, my design are sustainable. Prefer stating, I'm in process towards sustainability, or I'm engaged for sustainability. I'm part of a community that is moving towards sustainability. What is important when we think and we claim that we are doing sustainable design is to show at which point we understand the system in which we are. It's important to share the narrative that we think about and we want to see as a reality, but it's also important to measure and communicate the real impact that we are generating when possible. To start with sustainable design and to build circular economy or different economy, alternative economy, what we need to understand is the systems. So I really like this illustration because it's really about choosing your artifact, the product or the service that you are looking at and yet you are exploring, and to really dig into, to look at what are the different components of your system, what are the different interaction, flow, links between the different elements. And once you start from the object to the system level, you will see that there is a lot of complexity in the interaction that there is and the different impact that you can generate on the system. Fortunately, as it said on the illustration, once you know about the complexity and you start mapping the system, you can really, it says that complexity awareness is spreading fast. So it's true that after you feel part of a system that is moving, in which you can play with different strategy to change some part of the system. So when you start with system thinking, we need to remind also that when we do mapping of system, when we share about the knowledge about our system, is already something that it's a representation of our thought. No? It's a representation of what we call mental models. And we have a certain mental models, but maybe the people around have different ones. And what is interesting is really to share the system map that we have, to share the mental construction that we have about the concept we are designing. And also there is something that, a concept that I wanted to introduce in this course, that it's about what we call the heuristic. Heuristic is the way, what we call it is the mental shortcut that is cognitive load of making a decision. So if you think about the way you are making decision and you will design one aspect of your product or your system, it's important to know the way you think and the way you make the decision, and to explicit all of this in meeting with different tools, to also use different tools of design to stimulate the creativity inside your own way of thinking is super important. So this is why we will zoom today on 9 ways to engage with sustainable design. With 3 lenses. First, I think the most important is about revealing current mental model and to think system, as I was mentioning. The second one is to practice complex thinking in situ. So it means to be on the ground, to think with real context and to apply it in real context, and to have this quite of action research based thinking that we will explain just after. And the last one is something that is quite important and sometimes super hard to do in design practice, is to keep thinking on what's not sustainable, what is unsustainable in the way you are currently doing things and proposing things. So it's not about one time thinking about the impact that you can generate, propose something. It's really a continuous process. Let's start with four types of thinking to reveal current mental models. And here it's really about helping system map. So first is about life cycle thinking. The second one will be circular thinking. Third one, causal thinking. And the last one is network thinking. So life cycle thinking, it's one of the most basic thing that we need to know when we talk about sustainability and especially in the product development. It's about knowing how the product is made, how is distributed, and what is the end of life of the product. So there is different way of using the life cycle thinking. You can use it as a design tool. You can use it really doing a complete life cycle assessment. And the importance is really, when you see those diagrams that are on the screen, is to start from the resource extraction, after how it is produced, how it is distributed, how it will be used, how it will be recycled, or how we will think about the end of life. And for each step that you map on your project, you need to understand what are the different aspects to measure. Is it how many energy, how many materials, how many chemicals you will use at each step of the process. And this, thanks to that, you can have a good understanding afterward what will be the impact of your system in different aspects that we saw also before, such as eutrophication, pesticide, ozone depletion, smoke. So the life cycle assessment is being made once your project is quite already well advanced, and it consists in having defining the scope of your product system, doing an inventory analysis, then doing an impact assessment. And you have after this kind of graphic that you can see on the right, that is the basis for discussion and interpretation. And this could help to really understand what are the main impact and where you have to concentrate your efforts for the next strategy that you want to have in your product. So this analysis can be done with many software also. There is one with open source that is OpenLCA. But also there is this kind of simple tools that can help to think in a life cycle way. There is the MET tool. This is meant to be materials, energy, and toxicity. And in fact, you are analyzing at the production, use, and disposal, so the small life cycle, what are the impact in terms of and consumption in terms of material, energy, and toxicity. The other tool that I will not go in detail is the LEEDS wheel. So it's the classic eco-design wheel. And there is a series of strategy for eco-designing your product. And it's really a really nice way to also start if you didn't practice it before. Then we can go to circular thinking. And circular thinking is about closing the loop and considering waste as resources. When we think about circular thinking also, we can think about the 7 R's, when we talk about redesign, reuse, repair, renovate, remanufacture, recycle. So we know that it's about really creating loop, and what is interesting with these two diagrams that you can see on the screen, the first one is the classic butterfly diagram of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which create a distinction between the type of stock. So you have the renewable for one on the left side, and you have the finite material on the right side. And you see that there is different strategy that is being used according to the type of material that you have and the durability of this material. And also, circular economy is coming a lot with a lot of new business model, new circular business model. When we think about, for instance, repair or remanufacturing, we think also of this notion of service, new services. And I really think that trying to map your project system inside and this kind of diagram, and to think of your strategy to improve the end of life of your product and globally the longevity of your product is really key. So the next one is causal thinking. So here is about really deep dive into the cause causes on your project, your concept. It's about doing this kind of map, what we call system dynamic map also, that sometimes is also used to make some simulation of system. But what is important and useful as a design practitioner is to put your concept or your artifact at the center and to think about the different, how different impact and how this relate one with another. What are the positive effects? What are the negative effects? So this is a really great exercise to do when you want to understand the complexity of interaction with that. It's at the beginning of the system map. So then it's my favorite type of thinking. I think I apply a lot in any project I'm involved in. It's the network thinking, is to think also about the different stakeholder or different components and how they interact with each other. So there is many ways to visualize interaction and network, but the logic behind is just to see nodes and interaction line between the nodes, and this node could be people, domain. The flow can be any type of flow. It could be material, it could be resources, it could be knowledge, it could be many things. And the advantage to have this kind of network is also to analyze the dynamic of the network. For some of us, it's interesting to see, for instance, the proximity of the people that are super important in a system because they have many connections. The proportion, the density, and there is nice tools that what you can use for design. There is the QMU tool, but there is also a lot of social network analysis tools that can be used for that. So apart from getting to know how to map system and to have a better understanding of the context in which we are evolving, it's important also to think about certain mechanisms, certain behavior that we can have as designer that are inside projects. So what is the next category is about practice complex thinking, where you are in situ. So it's already hard to do many things when you are a designer, but I think what is interesting also is that you realize the complexity really quite fastly. So here we will zoom in three subcategories. We will just discuss what is dialogical thinking, multiscalar thinking, and also the role of empathy and social-emotional awareness in making. So what about dialogical thinking? What does it mean? It means to live with opposition. We all know that it's not white and black, and especially when you are making design decision, you know at which point it's about negotiation, and it's also about understanding some things that seems to be opposite. I just wanted to share with you, for instance, during the COVID situation, we have been mapping some different dialogy to illustrate the concept. When we talk about dialogy, we can illustrate that with, for instance, we need to reconnect and disconnect. We need some to be virtual, but also on the real. We need to care, but also we are maybe contaminated. We act, reflect. We also have this family work. And what do I mean with that is that it's not one or the other. It's something that really you need to deal with the two dimensions. Of course, with different timing, you will go more on one dimension than the other, but it's a matter of walking along the dialogy and embracing complexity. Also, something complex when you manage projects and design projects is to think at the same time local and global, and to be active in different scale. And for this, there is different tools that were developed that are really interesting, and it's really about thinking multiscalar, and really for dealing with sustainability, there is no other way to sometimes zoom on your own practice at home to see what's happening in the neighbor scale, to see what is happening globally, regionally, and to try to see how your project can interact, have impact at different scale. So using this mapping also is quite interesting. And the diagram on the right is also a concept that emerged from a bioregional work in Italy, when you see also this different scale, and you see that you can draw them differently, and as designer is interesting also to use different media to help you to reach the different type of scale and strategy that you want in your project. This one, I wanted to mention also the importance of empathy and socio-emotional awareness. But this will also be developed in other courses, and with much more in-depth thought. But it's really important also when you think about sustainability and system to reconnect concretely with things, and to making, and to feel about also what think about people. So it's about embody, resonating, and feeling. It's finding a balance between mind and body. And it's important also to, as I was mentioning, to stay on the ground and to also connect with intent, emotion when we are thinking about sustainable impacts. So the third lens was about thinking about what's unsustainable, and trying to also understand that it's important that in your design, in your current system, in the way we think, in the past, present, or future, we understand what is not sustainable. Sometimes it's a bit scary, or we feel like bad emotion when we think about what's not sustainable, because it's not about thinking about solution, but it's thinking about maybe problem, risk, threats. But it's a step, and there is some way to do it that can be maybe less, with less anxiety, and it's important in any case to think about the impact we are generating. So here I wanted to mention two methods that I really like. It's about thinking for conviviality with threat and thinking with risk. The first one, which is about convivial threat, is a bit also related to what we saw with the planetary boundary of Kite Rirov, but a bit more with radical thinking here. So all this approach is based on the book of Ivan Illich, Tools for Conviviality, which was a really hard critique of our society. Something that can illustrate that is this sentence: people will rediscover the value of joyful sobriety and liberating austerity only if they relearn to depend on each other rather than energy slave. This means that also behind that, it's interesting when we are designing things to have this notion on who are our energy slave, and how to reduce this, and how to change the relation we can have with people. And energy slave can be people, but can be also machines, and it's interesting to see all of that. So another one is about polarization, so it's talking about power, and I think this is something that we really want to explore in our community, is to see how power is distributed, how we can diminish the number of underprivileged, and talking about privilege is really something that is important. Also the topic like over-programming, obsolescence. It's really a nice reference, and it has been converted in different design tools that can be tested in some different scale. It could be at product level, or also at the city level. So if you are interested in that, do not hesitate to ask for more references. And the second approach to think about what's unsustainable, or I would rephrase for this context, to think with risk, so also to think your design in different contexts. We have adapted in a project of research that we have been doing in the Fab Lab recently, the Atlas of Weak Signal that was presented in another course, to be prepared to different type of crises. Here, what is interesting, it's really to think that sustainability also is the sustainability that will happen in the future, but we know that in the future there will be also many crises, and we are already living a lot of crises. So it's important to get better prepared, and playing with different scenarios between different cards to think about how your product or your community will react to pandemic, to natural disaster, to war and terrorism, or to blackouts, to man-made disaster. This can help you to either redesign some strategy. It can help you to better connect with places that are affected by this kind of crisis, but it can also come with new opportunity for you. So here we have been defining this nice way to dig into sustainable design, and to conclude with this more theoretical part, I would like to also state that we're also going now from sustainable to regenerative, and I think most of the people that I met recently are more recognizing themselves in the regenerative design than sustainable design. But it's also important to say that sustainability went before regenerative. So all the bases that we learned from sustainable design can be applied at some point for regenerative. But what do we mean by regenerative? I think the regenerative economy, as it is mentioned here, goes beyond sustainability and requires local collaboration and solidarity among individuals as co-creative participants. What is interesting in the regenerative part is the intent to free ourselves from the mindset of scarcity and competition. And it's also about reducing the intrinsic value of life to only utilitarian value to humanity. So not thinking about just how we will use things, but how we embrace and we connect with the things. It's about really situating, as we were saying at the beginning, with people, with place inside a bioregion. It's really also admitting that the system is broken and that there is a big part of the system currently that is degenerating. So we need to understand hand in hand how we can walk the human present and the impact on Earth can walk together. Those projects of relocalization, re-regionalization, are really the key and the starting point from doing this, of course supported by global collaboration and solidarity. I recommend two references here, the Designing Regenerative Culture from Daniel Christian Wall, and this diagram where you have the reference on super small on the graphic. So I wanted to illustrate a bit what was just said with some practical case study. This work I will present came from several years of practice of systemic thinking within textile transition. The first one I wanted to share with you is this drawing that you can see on the back of the slide. It was a big infographic system map that were done after several months spent in the Center for Circular Design in London, where we were exploring a concept what the name of the concept was the regenerative wardrobe. Is the idea to have a wardrobe that can evolve all along the time with different types of clothes and pieces. There was especially two types of clothes that were explored. There was what we called the fast and what we call the slow garment. The fast garments were maybe not lasting too long, but they have also not a lot of uses planned in the current system. It was made by more bio-based and compostable pieces, while the slow garment was really about a garment that you can wear all the life, and you can change the user of the garment. You can change the form, the shape, and the idea is really to find a way to think about how this material that create the first garment can keep its life all during more than 50 years. So this concept, it was developed in many forms within the Center for Circular Design. And from my side, I explore a bit in a systemic perspective how we can create this local ecosystem with textile life inside a city. And the role I had was also a bit to be critical on many aspects and to go deep dive in the systems. So what you can see, there is different, if we zoom on certain part, you can see there is all the process from cultivating the seed to the fiber to the fabric, to also go back on the cycle of reusing, repairing, and recycling the fiber. So all this complex circular process. There is also the machinery that is needed at different space. There is all the people What about craft artisans, what about makerspace and textile lab at this moment, how to map them. And after there was more complex concept to explore, and you can see what I was mentioning just before, this conviviality approach and thread that were mentioned. We did some workshop to explore this concept, and we used this matrix that you can see on the bottom right. And it's interesting really to apply those thinking to such a concept. It was discussed among the different partners of the project, and it was a great basis to then think, illustrate, and create maybe also some exhibition material that were developed in the project. From this, now I think we are building also in the Fab Lab and also with the network of textile and clothing business lab, TCBL, and Fabricademy, a big network of what we call the local hubs or local labs for fashion and textile. And there is really a reference project that if you are in this domain in textile making, if you want to think about sustainable design inside your practice, there is this really good tool that has been developed a few years ago, which about sustainable design is a test 10. You can explore it. There is the case of Reflow in Amsterdam that has been piloting circular textile in the city and doing a really nice system map and approach with the different agents of the system. There is this database of open circular fashion and all the courses that there is in Fabricademy related to circular design. And the recent project that is really worth to explore, and that was also really for me a way to engage a community in research for sustainability. It was about thinking about the wool value chain and how to relocate this value chain in different territories, especially when the wool was wasted or burnt and there was no use for that. And the idea was to create like little wool factory at lab scale that can help to think about and to engage with the community and mapping the community locally, having new design practice such as the natural dyes that you can do with applying heat to wool, and also having this a bunch of tools, DIY tools that for spinning, weaving, and really processing the wool locally in the lab, and to make this representation of small circular system accessible and feasible, and at least to have a community, international community that work on this. So let's conclude now. I hope you have learned some tips and tools to practice sustainable design. What I would like you not to forget is that behind sharing the circular narrative in a nice way, it's important to deep dive in complexity and act more as a guardian of sustainability inside distributed design community, because it's a concept that is evolving inside the community and is really interesting to discuss and to deep dive in that. Also, there is many things we didn't explore in this course. And I think when we think about sustainable as designer, we also ask what are the role of design and designer in a sustainable society? How we can support designer in finding their places in society, meaning how we can help sustaining their position, their job. This is something that we can also explore in another moment. And of course, what are the limits of design? Design is not the solution for all. There is many other aspects to consider and what we need to avoid for the sake of sustainability. As an exercise, the idea I had for you is to think and to try to do a system map. So I have been talking a lot about different types of system map. What is interesting for this activity is to learn to think in system and understand the relationship between things in the world from social, industrial, and ecological system. Normally, this exercise helps you to take a quick glimpse into the complexity of systems. So the idea for the exercise is that you select your concept, your product, something that you put on the middle, and you try to think and to put many things that make you think about this concept, and then to try to make some interaction with that. There is some explanation if you have more time to explore how to best orient your system map according to what you want to do. But really what is important in the exercise is to think about exploring connection between things and allow people, or if it's just you who do the system map, you can also do maybe a map with different people. It's to allow you to freely form relationship and share idea on a specific thing, and to see what's coming on from that. And as it is written also on the document, I think the messier, the better. So good luck with the exercise.